In the next lessons, we'll create an application to manage suppliers. We'll use some accelerators to scaffold the application fast and easy. We'll start by modeling entities and importing data for them. Let's start by creating our web application, and we'll call it suppliers. And let's add a new eSpace module to our application. Now, first, to model the entities in our application, you know that we need to go into the Data tab. And before we start creating here the entities, let me just show you the Excel file with the data that we're going to import into our application. This is a supplier list, and it has here a bunch of suppliers where we have their name, an email, a phone number, an address, and a website. And you notice here that not all of this information is filled in. For instance, the phone number is not present for this supplier, as well as the website. Okay, so before I continue, I'll need to close the Excel file, and let me just close it here. And now, instead of creating the entity and then bootstrapping the data, I'm going to use another option here on the entities folder, right click, and I'm going to use this option here, import entities from Excel. And I will choose the supplier's Excel file that you just saw. And you notice that a bunch of stars started showing here in our application. And what just happened is that this entity supplier here was created based on that Excel file. And for each column in the Excel file, an attribute is created that matches the top row of that column. The data types and the mandatory property of these attributes are also inferred by the OutSystems platform. So we have here the name, the email, and you'll notice that the data types are inferred by the platform, the phone number, the address, and the website. And if you recall from the data on the Excel file, the phone number and the website were not filled in all the rows. So this means that they are not mandatory in our entity. And the other attributes are inferred as mandatory. Apart from all these attributes, the platform also creates an identifier for our entity. Now, besides this entity that was created, other objects were created in our application. So let's see what objects were created. In the Logic tab, you will notice that under the Actions folder, we have an action. And this action is pretty much what we've seen in previous lessons. This is the action that bootstraps the data for this entity. And the data comes from this Excel file that we just saw. Let me just drill down here on this action. And you'll notice that the logic that is here on this action, this is not that complex logic. And basically what this action does is that it retrieves the information from the Excel file using the Excel to record list tool, which is this tool here. And it stores this information in the database. To accomplish this, the Excel file itself needs to be embedded as a resource under the Resources folder on the Data tab. So here on the Data tab, under the Resources folder, we will find our Excel file. Now, you've seen here the logic that creates these suppliers based on the data from the Excel file. The question that remains open is, but when does this logic get executed? And to answer that question, I'll need to show you another object that was created by this action that we just did. Here, under the Processes tab, you'll find a folder called Timers. And here you will find the Bootstrap Suppliers timer. A timer allows to execute logic asynchronously on a specific schedule. In this case, the timer is triggered when the application module is published. And you'll notice this by this property here, schedule, when published. And the logic that the timer executes is enclosed in this action that we are seeing here, the Bootstrap Suppliers action, the action that we have actually opened here in our application. In the next lesson, we will create a list screen to show the data from this Excel file. And that's it.